Hello, YouTube. We're back at it again, reviewing another episode of the Last of Us HBO series, episode 6 this time. And we're back to our old classic setup. So, better mic quality, a nice little Last of Us picture to look at. But I will say that this week's episode was better than last week's episode, in my opinion. And I think I'm going to need to let it sit a little bit longer before I officially decide where it sits in my ranking of the episodes. But right now, it's sitting at either my second favorite or my third favorite. There's a lot of things that I really enjoyed about this episode, and then there's the standard diehard fan of the game, really biased towards the game, changes that they made that we'll see how I feel about these changes. But the episode starts off with Henry and Sam's death, showing how that went down again, and then it says 3 months later. So that's different than the game. In the game, after Henry and Sam's death, it just flashes forward and it says fall. And in the show, we're in a winter setting now, and there's snow on the ground, so that's already different. But I would have to say I absolutely love the winter scenery. It is gorgeous, beautiful, and I always have to give props to the set design and where they chose to film, because it's breathtaking. And once we get to other parts of this episode, set design was done extremely well again. So, in the 3 months later, when it flashes forward, we see a man who's hunting rabbits, and he comes back to his cabin to his wife, but Joel is in there, and he tells the man to put down the rabbits and his gun, and he's trying to figure out where he's at. But the wife, I really enjoyed her as a character. She was funny and calm and collected, and the husband was also entertaining to listen to. And then when Ellie shows up, I don't know, I just enjoy her little sass and carefree and just her personality. I love it when it shines through the games and in the show. I don't know, it was enjoyable hearing them banter and making sure that Joel knows where he's going and how to find his brother Tommy. These people haven't heard of him, but then they tell him about this group of people that is beyond this river, and they call it the River of Death, because this group of people will leave dead bodies out to deter other people from coming there. And so this kind of sets you up thinking about the hunter group from the game, and probably trying to remind you of the group that we just had from episode 4 and 5, thinking it's another one of those. But in fact, it's not. And I predicted this. Granted, I've played the game, and this doesn't take place in the game. They changed this, but I had a feeling that this was going to be Tommy's group. So we get a nice little shot of Ellie and Joel traveling the winter scenery and talking, and I don't know, I enjoy their little character development together and taking watch. And you can see on how Joel is very cautious with Ellie, and how he's failing to have these sleepless nights, but he's also having heart problems, which made me confused. I was curious if we were going to get this one scene from the game, or if they were going to alter it. In the game, Joel gets impaled by something from falling off of something, but I was curious if we weren't even going to get a scene like that, and instead he's going to have heart problems and fall off his horse, which we'll discuss that more later as we get to towards the end of this episode. But that was just something I was curious about. But then, as they're traveling, they come across a dam, and in the game you do come across this dam, but it's not winter, and it's a different type of dam. But You get some dialogue that's in the game that's not exactly word for word, but it was interesting to see that, and I kind of missed the dialogue from the game, but it's not a big thing and not something I'm going to dock points on for not being one of my favorite episodes. But then Ellie was like, wait, Joel, what if this is the river of death? Because they had crossed another river earlier in the episode, and they're like, yeah, that old couple, they were crazy. They didn't know what they were talking about. But then these people on horseback come and just surround Ellie and Joel. And then there's a real tense moment where they have a dog that smells infections, and it will alert them if you're infected, and they were going to shoot them on sight. So I was curious how they were going to get through this. In a way, I thought another writer was going to come up and he was going to be like, oh my god, that's Joel, that's my brother. But that does not happen. The dog doesn't smell the infection on Ellie and is actually just starts licking her. And Joel was relieved from that, but he was just scared. Like, he did not know what to do, and I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know if Joel was going to shoot the dog and then they were going to get in trouble or what they were going to do. But then this woman asks who Joel is, and then Joel states that he's just looking for his brother and that his name is Joel. And then she's like, come with me. So she brings them to this nice little developed community that they've got going, which is different in the game because they have a community going in the game, but they are still trying to get it working, and they haven't gotten the electrical dam working to give them power to the city. So they're actually repairing that in the game, and they get it working while you're there. But yeah, it's a lot more developed, and it looks very, very close to the actual developed part of Jackson that you see in The Last of Us Part 2. So I enjoyed the set design there, thought it was done really well. But I don't know, I kind of wish we could have gotten to see it develop as it goes. But that's another little minor complaint, not something I'm going to dock it a whole bunch of points for. It's not something I think's 100% necessary for the story, but something that I enjoy. And then Joel sees Tommy and calls out for him, and Tommy comes running down, and they hug, and they get to have a nice little bonding moment. Which, this is where some things kind of take a little bit of a turn, and I don't know, confuses me. So they go into like this nice like dining room of a cabin, like something I kind of feel like you would see at a camp. But and they have a nice warm meal, and they're just chatting it up with Tommy and this mysterious woman who we come to find out is his wife Maria, which I kind of sort of picked up from the when they were on the horses and she was talking that it was Maria, which they've done a race change, sort of like how Sarah in the video game was white, and then she's like mixed in the show. Maria is now black, so I wasn't 100% for sure, but with the way that she was talking, how kind of handling things before then, I figured that was her, and I think she plays the part pretty well. Reminds me of Maria from the game, so that's a change. Not that big of a change in my opinion, but I think it might throw some people off from the game of not knowing exactly who she is, but if you paid attention to her character, in my opinion, it was pretty easy to guess. But another big departure from the game is she's actually pregnant. So in the game, I don't think that Tommy ever does have his own kid. Not even in part 2. From my knowledge, I don't recall it at all. So I'm curious to see if he'll actually have his own child, or if she's gonna have a miscarriage, or what they're gonna do. But this is a new plot point that I'm curious to see where it goes. But yeah, and Maria's real nice to Ellie, gives her a haircut, gives her some feminine products to help with her period, so that way she doesn't just have to rely on tampons. But I know I've seen some people say that they really appreciate them making it more realistic and just the zombie apocalypse and just wondering what the women do when that thing comes through. They just free bleed or what? But yeah, so Maria's nice to Ellie and gives her some advice, and then this advice that she gives her, which I think is a pretty interesting quote. It's not in the game, but she's concerned about having Joel because she knows about Joel's past, and Ellie is sticking up for Joel and defending him, but she just tells Ellie to be careful who you trust because the ones who you trust are the only ones who can hurt you or betray you. It was something along the lines of that. But I was like, wow, that's actually a pretty powerful message, and I don't know, I enjoyed that aspect of it. And then we get a private moment between Tommy and Joel, and Joel just shares his struggles on how he's weak, how he's failed to protect Ellie, how she had to kill somebody that we saw in episode 4 because he was too deaf and too slow to do anything. And then when the raiders were, or when the horses surrounded them early in the episode, he just froze and he didn't know what to do. So he was going to ask Tommy to take Ellie for him. And that's when Tommy reveals that Maria's pregnant and he's going to be a dad and that he just has to be more careful. And Joel gets a little bent out of shape about that and is just like, come on, Tommy, you got to help me. And I don't know, they don't really get into as much of a tussle as they do in the game, and so I'm a little bit disappointed about that. But again, I don't think that's super major. But what this does lead to is Tommy never has to go talk to Maria exactly and tell her what's going on. And so then Ellie never actually runs away like she does in the game where Joel and Tommy have to go chase her down. So I think a scene that happens in the game, which it in a way happens in the show, I think it's a lot less impactful. And this scene that happens in the game is probably my favorite scene from the game. So that's what just makes me sad about this episode is it doesn't happen like it does in the game, and the lines aren't delivered the exact same. But I'm jumping a little bit ahead. So going back to when Maria was taking care of Ellie and cutting her hair, she makes mention about how Ellie must have seen the memorial for her kid and another kid. And so Ellie just says, I'm sorry about your kids. And then she goes, it was just a kid, Kevin. Sarah was Joel's daughter. So then Sarah just is like, whoa, that explains so much about Joel and his character. But yeah, so somehow Ellie did overhear something from Joel and Tommy about how Tommy's got to take her and that he has to leave her. So the night before that happens, Joel actually goes up to Ellie's room where they're housing him and Ellie and tries talking to her, but then she's reading the diary and gives a line of, is this really all they had to worry about? Boys, movies, which skirt goes with which shirt? But then she's like, what are you doing here? And Joel's like, I came here to talk to you. And she's like, if you're gonna ditch me, ditch me. So that doesn't happen in the game, or the wording doesn't go exactly like that. The reading the diary part where she talks about boys movie, which shirt goes with which skirt, that is in the game. But I don't know, the dialogue is just different. It doesn't hit as hard, and I don't know, just the whole fact that Ellie didn't run off out of frustration where Joel and Tommy had to go run after and save her and then get discovered by bandits and have to fight the bandits off. And then Joel decided to take her from there. I think is just a lot less impactful and brings this episode down for me, which might make it my third favorite episode, but it very well could be number 2 if I get over the fact of this, because I really think this episode was done well. So then it cuts to morning, and it looks like Tommy's getting ready to pick up Ellie and take her to the place, because Joel just tells Tommy, he's like, hey, if you want to make good, she's immune, which I think I actually messed up, because when they were talking just solo, him and Tommy, while Ellie was getting her hair done with Maria, Joel wants Tommy to come on the journey with him, the two of them and Ellie, so the three of them going on the journey. But then later, Maria takes Ellie to see a movie, and then Joel is trying to fix his shoes in a shack, and then Tommy finds him there and gives him a pair of new shoes, and then this is where Joel asks Tommy to take her, and Tommy agrees. So I got that wrong a little bit earlier. I was kind of blending the game in there with it, but that's how it actually happens in the show, and Tommy agrees. But now, cutting back to where I was earlier, where it cuts to the morning, and Tommy knocks on Ellie's door, and it looks like he's getting ready to take her. They make it to the stables, and then Joel's there, getting a horse prepared, and Tommy's like, what are you doing here? And Joel's like, I was getting ready to steal a horse and go with you. And so then he talks to Ellie, he's like, now, you deserve a choice, and she's like, we're going. Just shoves her bags into Joel and chooses him, so they get to go on their way. They make it to the university, and the campus, even though it's abandoned, it still looks absolutely beautiful. We get some more dialogue about football, or more dialogue from the game about football. It's pretty similar. The wording's a little bit different. They don't say it word for word, and as they're traveling through the campus, we get other dialogue that you can encounter in the game that's not exact, but nice little references. And I kind of wish that they would have spent a little bit more time in the university. It feels rushed, which, granted, this is a show, it's not a game, and in the game you're clearing out infected, and there's going through the dorm rooms. I personally really enjoyed that section of the game, but as a show, I can understand where you have to cut certain gameplay aspects. But this is where they change something. So they see that the Fireflies have abandoned and that they were moving somewhere, and they have the monkeys in the show, in the game. They do make a reference to that, but they're not really in the hospital for a long time, having to figure out where the Fireflies went. They know that they've moved, but then hunters show up, and Joel tells Ellie to get away from the window. So they get away from the window, don't even get spotted there, don't even get shot at like you do in the game. And then when you're fighting and you're running, and then Joel, a man busts through the door and tackles Joel and shoves him off a balcony, and then Joel gets impaled by some rhubarb. And then Ellie has to help escort Joel, which that scene just hits so hard in the game. Here, they make it back to the horse, and then a man comes up with a baseball bat and tries to hit Joel, misses, hits the tree. Joel fights him, chokes him out, but the man stabbed Joel with a knife. So that's how Joel gets the hole in his little gut. But then they get him on the horse, and they take off. The other men are chasing after them. Ellie turns around, shoots at them. I don't think she kills anybody, but they lose them, and then they're on some frozen little train tracks, I believe. And then Joel falls off the horse, and Ellie's just like, Joel, come on, what are we gonna do? I don't know what to do. I'm lost. Don't, Joel, open your eyes. And so next episode, I believe we're going to get the Left Behind DLC, where Ellie will be finding a way to take care of Joel, and then also having flashbacks to her and Riley's adventure through the mall. So, yeah, I'm excited. I would give this episode a solid 8.5 out of 10 right now is probably what I would give it. There's scenes that I wish were from the game that were in there, and I think that the game does better, but I'm always biased, and then I'm always biased towards Ellie and Joel moments whenever it comes through, because didn't make mention of this in my last week's review, but talking to my friends about episode 4, they're like, no, this episode was good, but it's not all that great. You're just biased towards Ellie and Joel. And I'm like, dang, you're right. I really am biased towards their relationship. So some of my all-time favorite video game characters, I can't help but be biased, and I'm just open and honest about it. So, but I want to try to sort of be objective in this, but again, it's all my opinion. And if you guys have made it this far in the video, I thank you very much. Feel free to go back and comment your thoughts on the previous episodes. I have a playlist with all of my reviews for the Last of HBO show, and once the series concludes, I plan on doing a well-edited review of my thoughts of the series, and then I want to include your guys' thoughts in it as well, so be sure to comment. Alright, thank you guys. See you next week.